Summer routines live or die by how easy they are. And honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the John Krasinski Show on the Talk North Sports Podcasting Network. We are coming to you live from the Aquarius Home Services Studios and presented by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. I'm John Krasinski, the Minnesota Timberwolves beat writer for The Athletic. Jim Souhan normally joins us. He is on vacation this week. And so I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague at The Athletic, Mirin Fader. We are going to get into all things LaMelo Ball with Mirin, who has profiled him several times, knows him very, very well. And then at the end of the show, we'll also dig into a little bit of the juicy LeBron James rumors going as well. So the John Krasinski Show is brought to you by TSR Injury Law, SG Lamb Chops, and True Vision Institute. And Mirin, thanks so much for joining us. Just how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. Dude, you're awesome. I'm happy to join you.
No, it's great. I was super excited when you came aboard. You had an awesome season for us, and now you're even more valuable for us Timberwolves people because you know LaMelo Ball so well. You just to give some of the listeners a little bit of background, you have gone to see him when he was young in Lithuania. You went to Australia to see him a second time while he was kind of working his way up through the NBA, and you certainly spent some time with him in the NBA as well. And I think what I wanted to bring you on primarily for is I think Wolves fans have watched LaMelo Ball from afar. They've seen kind of the highlights. They see the tattoos and the bright cars and kind of all the social media stuff. And I think that you could probably give us a really good idea of who this young man is as a person since you've spent so much time around him. And I think that he is a little bit of a mystery. He's a little bit, I think people have certain ideas about him from afar, but just being up close with him, what strikes you about LaMelo Ball, the person, and how would you describe him to a Timberwolves fan who's eager to kind of get a slice of the personality behind the player?
Yeah, I would say so much deeper than people realize. I think even going to Lithuania, he was just pulled out of high school and the same exact reputation, all those qualities that you named just now, those were the same exact things that, the baggage that he had. And it's crazy to say that baggage of a 15-year-old, but he's been carrying that same rep for so many years. And I was so surprised being in Lithuania, showing up to the gym every single day. It was a small town. You could just walk in. I was there for 3 weeks. And I was so stunned to see a mature player, somebody who is actually really thoughtful, really interesting, really, obsessed with the IQ and strategy behind the game, hardworking. He was always there beyond his teammates. And when I followed him to Australia the previous year pre-draft, same thing, but even more. I mean, there were times where, I was texting with his manager, hey, can I come with you guys to the beach? I know he's going to run sprints. Oh, he already went. And we went at 4 a.m. And I'm just like, what? Because all the concerns back then were the same ones now. And there is a person in there that is so much more serious about winning than I think people realize.
What, what expectations did you have when you first went over to Lithuania and we're saying, hey, I'm going to learn about this kid and I'm gonna kind of write about his story, and what were you expecting going in and how did that evolve as you spent more time around him?
I thought this is a spoiled kid who doesn't love basketball, who has been forced into this by his father. And I found the complete opposite to be true. I actually felt much more empathetic towards him in the sense that he has not had a normal childhood. And I know people know that. They know the shades of LaMelo's story, but they don't understand what it's like to actually have a reality show camera in front of your face from when you are 10 years old all the way up till 18. That does something to you. There's a aspect of him that's always had to be on, that's always had to perform. And you could see the relief on his face when the cameras would go away and he could just be himself. And so when I think about Timberwolves people worrying, oh, is he only here for the show or social media or, wants to be, just have fun or whatever, I actually think it's the opposite. He's like most happy, most himself, most serious when he's actually playing and playing hard. This is a new challenge for him. And, I'm sure we'll get into that. But I think that people who think that he doesn't care, it just couldn't be farther from the truth. The problem with him is that he hasn't been able to use his own voice from the time you all saw him as that hot-headed kid that pulled up from half court all the way till, his brother is going to, Lonzo going to the league and, well, who is LaMelo? And the thing is, he's never been able to articulate that. He's always been on camera, yet we never knew anything about him. So for me, getting this special window into him, I was like, wow, he's actually so different than other people know. His coaches loved him. Like Lithuania, Australia, they were like, I was really surprised. He cares so much about attention to detail. You tell him something once, he's doing it. I guess it's just been unfair because he never had a chance to kind of show his true colors because others were always speaking for him.
And like reading your story, especially from Lithuania, like, can you paint us a picture for what he went through on a day-to-day basis? Because the way that he's in a rural town in Lithuania with no sort of anything of amenities around him, right? Like I'm thinking about a teenage kid being plucked and dropped into that situation.
Right.
Sort of the fortitude that it takes to endure and go through that. What was it like just on a day-to-day basis for him living there?
Well, and also he didn't ask for it. So it was
Right.
not of his will. So you talk about somebody who's so used to being in LA and being around all these people to being in a town where there's so few people that you can see. It is desolate. It was the dead of winter, going outside freezing. And LaMelo and I are both from California. And so we were like, what is snow? Like, I don't understand. Like he just kept traveling. He and his family kept traveling in this like little minivan and the snow would just pellet the whole thing. And you'd take it off and only to have it get there the next day. Like we don't know what that's like. We don't know seasons. We are totally spoiled. So he's like, I'm freezing. I'm hungry. There's no food like we're used to. Not a lot of people speak English. There aren't even like road signs. I was like, God, who is going to come get me if I like fall off the side of the road because I don't know where I'm going? So with him, he literally woke up. We stayed at the same hotel. You wake up, you go to the gym, you go home. Like it was not a life. It was not glamorous. It was not fun. The gym, the way I can describe it is like your worst high school gym that is so tiny. It has bleachers, which can give it some homely character, but it is literally like a gym in the middle of nowhere. There was this big smokestack outside of it. You just felt like you were in like some Soviet, like old, gulag place. And then there would be a soup kitchen next to you. Like that's how I felt. And it was eerie. There was like a cemetery nearby. I mean, we are just not getting fun vibes, right? When I was sent there, my editors were like, this is going to be so fun. LaMelo take Europe next in line for the, NBA throne. And we get there and we're like, this is where we're at. Okay, this is not royalty. So it's funny because all the people were watching his games on Facebook Live. And so you would think the way the camera showed it and he's scoring 40 points a game that he's just excelling. But internally, he has to wake up every day, still go to that gym, still put on a good face, still try and have fun, even though he's clearly miserable. It sucks. He doesn't want to be there. And you know what? He does it with maturity. Like, that was the one thing that I came away with. I was like, wow, I'm miserable. He's miserable. And yet, he still sprints. He still tries. There's not I'm just going to give up, fuck it, because nobody's going to know. Who's going to know if I don't go hard? Nobody's in Lithuania. They won't know. His own pride wouldn't let him do that. And so I really, really respect that about him.
Well, and then that gets to the kind of the point that you're making earlier too about loving the game. I mean, if you're willing to put yourself through that and not give up, there must be some sort of internal drive within you that he's finding on a daily basis. Like maybe that's a sanctuary, whatever it is, but I just can't imagine trying to perform at a high level against much older players, and while you are a million miles away from anything you're ever used to doing.
Well, and keep in mind, he's not around his brothers either. So there isn't this sense of like, I am LaMelo Ball, third in line. I am LaMelo Ball, ranked blah, blah, blah. There, they know he's this famous American player, but he's also a no-name in the sense that like, he is anonymous. The average person there does not care about basketball. And I think it just showed me that actually he does love the game. Like actually he does watch film for fun. Actually he does keep up with the NBA, not just current, but past. And people refuse to believe that. They're like, no, he's unserious. He's totally unserious. He doesn't care. Look at all the tattoos. He pulls from half court. And like the thing is like he didn't have structure. So if he could pull from half court, he was going to pull from half court. Yeah. That's why I think actually this opportunity, and not to skip ahead, is going to be so good for him because guess what? You can't make some of those foolish decisions. You can't. The team is actually really good. And so kind of like how he was forced in these overseas teams to adapt his game and actually, score within an offense, pass with an offense, lead an offense, you just can't do some of the fun things that you could do when nothing mattered.
Yeah, I read the piece when you were with him in Australia for Bleacher Report, and there was a quote that absolutely like gutted me. You're talking about LaMelo and like what he does on a day-to-day basis, just as a kid in Australia, and he said he sits around and waits for time to die, and I was just like, I mean, this sounds like the most depressing thing you could ever think of. He's isolated. He's, again, in another complete different country, culture, away from his friends, playing the game, doing all those things. But like that tells me of the mindset that he was fighting through on a daily basis. And I can't even imagine.
Exactly. And it built so much mental toughness, because really like people think also in the NBA, when these rookies sign these amazing contracts, they have all this money. Well, they also have all this time. And you're only practicing for what, like an hour and a half, really? The majority of your time is off the court. And he had a crash course in that overseas because it was literally train and go home. And he just looked so, I really worried, like, is this the life you really want? Is this what you want? And he would just be like, I'm so determined. I want to do this. I want to do this. And, the Australia experience was so wonderful to really see how authentic that was because for the first time, his dad was not around him. And I got to actually hear from LaMelo and I got to actually see what his schedule is like when his dad is not dictating his every move. And it's LaMelo who's begging his trainers, let's go more. It's LaMelo who's like, I want to study this film. It's him taking advantage. Even something as simple as like, I remember I was asking him, like, what do you eat out here? Because on the one hand, he's downing his pancakes with too much syrup, like on ungodly amounts. Like I literally said to him, I was like, this is disgusting. And you remind me of like my kid brother. And yet the maturity would come out and he's like, well, I won't eat that because, I'm eating dragon fruit. I'm eating clean. I'm focused. So I think like people mistake the playfulness as immaturity, but really what LaMelo shows is just you can't be your youngest self and most developed self. That is inherently an oxymoron. And people have always wanted him to be his most developed as a 17, 18-year-old. And he is still developing. But I do think he has the motivation and sincerity to really say, hey, I'm not a finished product. I have more in me.
Yeah, and kind of building off of that, one of the things I think that is related to that is you talk in your story about his manager, Jermaine Jackson, kind of viewing how he was being evaluated going into that draft as people looking less at what does he do on the court, what are his skills, what does he bring to the table, and more of like, well, he's this social media icon, he's got this global following, and it was really looking at him much more as a commodity than as a human being or even a player. And I think that a lot of players, especially nowadays, are probably used to that a little bit, but it really does seem like with LaMelo, it was taken to another level in terms of just like the picturing him as a business asset that you are bringing in rather than, okay, how does his skill translate to whatever we want to do on in the NBA?
It's so true. And, Jermaine also compared him at the time to like Michael Jackson, not in the sense of like greatest ever or whatever, but just in the sense of such a high profile, such fame and how difficult fame is and how LaMelo's so used to it and doesn't make it look difficult. So we think he doesn't care, quote unquote, doesn't care. But it's really hard. Like, it's really, really hard. Like, he just seemed so much calmer and happier when they weren't filming. And, everything was like, well, are they going to bring cameras? And just seeing him able to go to the beach and sprint without cameras was like relief, right? Because when you grow up under such a glare, you can't help but know that you're performing. And I do think there's a part of him that wanted to perform to the role that was assigned to him, which is funny kid brother. But the thing is, we have to allow LaMelo to grow up, and he's not funny kid brother anymore. He's an adult. He's a grown man. He's allowed to change. I also think that it's unfair to continue to kind of punish him for his upbringing. He didn't choose to be in this family. He didn't choose to be in this expectations for him. And I know that people can say, well, I'm judging him because he does this one-legged three and he does this. Totally fair. He doesn't help himself out with those things. But there's so many moments behind the scenes people don't see about how coachable he is, about how well-liked he is. So people want to focus on the social media and how will he fit in. But one thing that's actually never discussed with LaMelo is how much the locker rooms love him. They love him. Like, every place I've seen him, Chino Hills, Lithuania, Australia, Charlotte, which I went to a practice. I went to a shoot around when I was doing a Con Knipple feature, and you can see all the teammates gravitate towards him because the same things that people are dissing, his humor, his fun, his, charisma, are what they are attracted to. And there were all these reports at the time I went to the shoot around, LaMelo's unhappy, all whatever, and you wonder where these come from. And I'm literally at the shoot around watching everyone laugh with him and joke with him and like high five him and do a 3-point shooting contest together. So I say what people will say about, will he fit here? Is he good? Is he this? Is he that? One thing you're not going to have to worry about is locker room problems. People really like him.
We'll get into more of that with Mirin Fader here at The Athletic on the John Krasinski Show. We're going to take a quick break here to let you know that we are brought to you by TSR Injury Law and Lexus of Maplewood and Wayzata.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services. Yes, we all love summer, but if your air conditioner's acting more like an oven than a fridge, now's the time to trade in and trade up with an additional $500 off on top of our summer sale pricing on a new cooling system from Aquarius. Enjoy a cool, comfy home all summer long. Schedule your free estimate today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to LexusofWayzata.com or LexusofMaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
Let's thank TSR Injury Law 612, TSR Time 612 TSR time. We got to get Steve Terry back on the show here soon. We haven't talked to him in a little while. What you need to know is if you're ever injured, you call 612 TSR time. They're good people. They'll take good care of you. It's that simple. 612 TSR time.
Back here on the John Krasinski Show, I'm John Krasinski with Mirin Fader, my colleague at The Athletic, talking LaMelo Ball. And that's such an interesting observation that you make, Mirin, because I have been in the last few days since the trade went down, just trying to talk to people Charlotte related. I know some people in the organization. I know some people connected to it, of just trying to get an idea, because Mirin, like, I was just thinking about this. I don't know that I actually know what LaMelo's voice sounds like. I mean, when you think of like all of the high profile stars in this league, Ant, LeBron, Steph, KD, like all of them are in the spotlight, and we see interviews with them, and you kind of absorb it. And I've certainly talked to a million of them. I've never talked to LaMelo directly myself, but like, it's just every sort of piece of content that I digested of LaMelo prior to this was just like the highlights on YouTube, the highlights on Twitter, and I never really heard him talk all that much. So I really did not have any idea of the personality. And like, just from in terms of like, I guess, an interview subject, and in terms of like a conversationalist, what is he like, and what do you think fans will hear from him when he arrives?
This is such a great question. And honestly, you are so right. Because when I was thinking about this interview, I was like, let me see what he's recently done. And like, he's done nothing. He's said nothing. And you think about, well, why? And it's like, well, look what they already think about him. Why would he give people a chance to pick him apart again and again and again? Right? Like, he just came off this like really good year, and now he's traded. Like, the disconnect is crazy. So I think because he's been misunderstood his whole life, he's like, well, I don't want to put my voice in other people anymore. But as somebody that has spoken with him a lot, he is really, really attentive. He's like, what do you mean about this? Do you mean that? Do you mean this? Instead of just like, sometimes you're interviewing people and they give you a canned answer and you're like, oh my God, please give me just something. And he's like, well, I was thinking this, but do you mean this? And I just felt he was so engaged, and also just kind, just like, is that all you need? Do you need anything else? And very complimentary towards teammates. Like, I wouldn't even ask him about teammates. He'd be like, well, this guy and I were doing this the other day, and man, he's so good at this. Like, just willingly complimenting people in a way that doesn't feel forced or fake. He's so funny in a good way. Like, having proper perspective actually, to me, is a sign of maturity. And every time I've talked to him, I've noticed that he's able to like put the moment in a larger context. So even when the teams that, for example, like Australia, they weren't the best team, they were losing, he was able to say, yeah, but we're playing really hard, and the guys are really fighting and trying and caring, and, you know, you got to put things into perspective. We're so blessed to be here. Look, the water's over there. Like, I just found him remarkably, it was like refreshing, you know, seeing that perspective, and also just the willingness to be reflective, which again is not something that people think of when they think of him. When he told me, people look at me like I'm a dollar sign, to me, I was like, wow, that is such a deep and profound thing to say. And people don't give him enough credit for being that introspective. But trust me, like, he sees absolutely everything that's going on. He knows absolutely what everybody is thinking about him, negatively and positively. He sees it, he reads it. And yeah, I just found him to be much more interesting. Like, I really want to do another profile because I know there's so much that he has to say and he hasn't said. And I think that's been intentional. It's like, you know what? I've been misunderstood since I was 10 years old. I don't need it. And I can respect that and understand that.
So how do you think he is handling the trade in terms of, like, I mean, he's a young player. He was the face of the franchise in Charlotte. I think fans all loved him there. Like you said, teammates loved him. And now he's abruptly traded to Minnesota. Even, let's just set aside for a second that, hey, maybe he is excited about Ant or about playing on a winner, but just the physical act of, at that age, with the status that he was at, of being traded, what do you think that's like for him right now?
Yeah, I should start by saying I haven't spoken with him since
Yeah.
the trade, but in my, kind of guesstimation of everything I know about him and the time I've spent with him, I imagine it to be at first confusing and
Mhm.
not a great feeling.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm not saying he's sensitive, but I am saying that he cared a lot for that franchise. And
Uh-huh.
even though people said, well, he doesn't care about winning, I absolutely know that he did. And so it's a strange feeling to have such a good year and to be healthy. And then all of a sudden be like, actually, you're not part of our long term plans. We're building this
Uh-huh.
special thing and you helped us get there, but we don't need you anymore. And
Uh-huh.
that's got to hurt. At the same
Uh-huh.
time, he's so competitive and he's so adaptable, right? Dad throws me out of high school, plucks me in this middle of nowhere Lithuania town. All right, let's ball. Come on, Minnesota. I'm sure he's already like, cool, ready. I love Ant.
Uh-huh.
I think
Mhm.
he's so adaptable from having, been in situations he didn't choose to his whole life, literally his entire life, that whatever negative feelings I'm sure has spurned into motivation and honestly excitement. Like
Uh-huh.
LaMelo reminds me of every guy I've played pickup basketball with in the sense of, I don't care who's the other four, we are winning. Like,
Uh-huh.
that's him.
Uh-huh.
And I think Ant is so similar that, like, I know they're super excited to, like, play
Uh-huh.
together. And I think there is an opportunity. LaMelo knows that like I said, he knows what the perception of him is. And I do think he is probably very aware that this is a chance to reset and this is a
Uh-huh.
chance to show that there is so much more to you than what people think and watch what you can do on a winning team where you don't have to be the guy. You can be the
Uh-huh.
number two and it almost takes pressure off of you. And
Uh-huh.
here's the thing about LaMelo. Not only is he well liked in the locker room and just like a beloved teammate, he's such a good passer. This man is gonna
Right.
have a field day, like
Mhm.
passing the ball to Ant and setting him up. And, he just has so many different targets. And you know what? Older people, he needs to be around older people. I
Uh-huh.
think that a good vet or two will do him great. You know why? Because
Uh-huh.
it'll remind him of his older brothers who used to bag on him and scold him when he wasn't doing right. And, how dare you take that shot? We didn't need that. Like, he
Uh-huh.
responds really well to older dudes that put him in his place.
I've been thinking a lot about it too, in terms of it feels very similar to me right now to the way that Karl Anthony Towns' career started, in that he was a big time draft pick, number one overall, comes into a very bad organization, loses a lot for like those first 5 or 6 years. And there was a lot of turnover, coaches, front office, like, outside from 1 year with Jimmy Butler, they had, his teammates were always lacking. And I think that a lot of then the scrutiny would end up on Cat. And they would look at his personality, the way he answered questions, and he's on this losing team. And so then you sort of get branded in this way that might be unfair. And we've seen, in the last 2 years now, 3 years, like he's really been validated for the player that he is and winning the championship this year. And I just feel like, of course, LaMelo has things that he needs to clean up as a player. There are things that he needs to improve on. But I just think that I don't want to look at him individually without acknowledging the larger incubator he came from in Charlotte, where there was there was a lot lacking there for a very long time before this season when things started to come together.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing's on the table, why shouldn't I jack up a three? Like, I
Uh-huh.
mean, nothing. If
Uh-huh.
nothing matters, then nothing matters. And I think like
Uh-huh.
that. I'm not saying he was playing with that mindset, but I
Uh-huh.
am saying it was a really bad culture and some really rough years. And then you put in health stuff. Like,
Uh-huh.
we weren't seeing the best of him,
Uh-huh.
and like success in the NBA to me. Like, look, everyone's got to work hard. Everyone's got to be talented, skilled, whatever, physical.
Uh-huh.
So much is luck. You just have to be lucky in the right
Uh-huh.
situation with the right team in the right time, all of that. And maybe this is the luck he finally needs to unlock all that he is because
Uh-huh.
perception, while it has followed him for so long, maybe it finally changes when a change of scenery, coaching, all of that, people can see him truly shine through. And you know what? He deserves that. Like, I think he did really well last year. There's so much more to unlock. And I think what will be funny is when he does do well and it does work out, if it does. I'm not one of those like writers that are like, I know this is exactly what's going to happen. Maybe it doesn't go well. Who knows? But if it does, I really hope the people aren't like, yeah, he matured so much. And he really changed. I don't think it's, yes, I agree he needs to mature in ways like you said. Yes, of course, duh, nobody's discounting those things. But it's also who he is. It's not really he must change. I just think people need to open their eyes up about him a little bit more. And so if things go right, I am going to laugh so hard seeing the bandwagoners being like, he just grew up. He just had to grow up. He, you know, and it's like, maybe, but also maybe you had to give him a chance to show you who he is.
That's great. We have seen, I'm really interested to get your view on, obviously, in the very early days, LeVar dominated the whole conversation and took all of the oxygen in the spotlight. And, you know, we can say whatever we want about it. It was funny. Like, I remember when we first started The Athletic and we had sort of this aim of being sort of a higher minded publication and rising above the clickbait. One of the things was we said no LeVar Ball. We're not going into those like LeVar said this, LeVar said that kind of stuff to try to get attention. But really, it seems like the last few years he has at least receded from like the dominant voice that we've seen. Have you seen that, or like what do you think has gone on with that part of the equation, you know, kind of as LaMelo has gone up through the NBA here?
It's definitely true. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But part of that is because the struggles with Lonzo, his own career, his own health, and the way his career has panned out. And Jello, you know, never quite got to that point anyway to have, you know, at least the career that Lonzo had. And so LeVar started out with this bold prediction of all three, and not only all three, but on the same team. And, you know, and I think the disillusion of that dream. And hey, Lonzo has had a career and he has nothing, I mean, hold his head up. Like there's nothing negative to say there at all. And also super well liked. But I do think the disillusion of the dream and the way that things have panned out is probably why you haven't heard. And there's a lot of recent news in recent days. There's Tina and LeVar divorced. LeVar has had health issues with his foot. So I think what you're seeing is normal family dynamics that we all have. It's just that now they're finally playing it behind closed doors like we all do. And you hear snippets here or there, but for the most part, it's kind of receded. And to be honest, I think that's really good for LaMelo because even though LeVar was always, like I remember in Lithuania, we were sitting at the hotel and he was telling me what he liked about each of his boys. He said, my boys. So I'm not the boys, but he was like, my boys. And, you know, Lonzo, he's this, Jello, he's this, but LaMelo, that's the one. That's the one. He's going to have the longest career. And I thought to myself, like, God, that is so hard to be LaMelo. It's so hard to hold that on your shoulders. But he's held it this whole time, and he was right. So I think part of the reason maybe he's able to withstand and have the career he's having, even if, like I said, there's more to go, is because he's been able to be like an autonomous adult. It's very different from when I was there in Lithuania, where his dad made every decision. He literally took over the team. Like, guys, go back to that. He took over the team. The real coach got, like, hijacked, okay? Australia, he'd pop in here and there. But, you know, and now it's like, oh, he's really an adult. And, like, part of being an adult is making mistakes. And we've seen LaMelo's mistakes, right? We've seen them. But the further that he can lean into being his own person, I think the better basketball player he will become.
Where does he fit? Like, how did the three brothers work, like, together? Like, how would you describe how they play off of each other in terms of just fitting together in the family unit and how that works out?
So I think the dynamic is the same as it was when they were growing up, in the sense that it's always big brother Lonzo knows
Mhm.
best, and Jello again follows suit. So LaMelo was always on this island, and like these two brothers telling him what to do and don't do this and do that, or you're not playing well, you're not as good as me. And I think that that's so healthy that that will never change, even though LaMelo will go down as having the best career out of all of them. He will still never beat big brothers. And I think like that's really cool and really healthy. And so I think they have that dynamic. You're starting to see more personality from Lonzo because he's
Yeah.
podcasting. And
Right.
I think that's so interesting because so when Lonzo was a rookie, I actually did a profile on him for Bleacher Report, and that was how I got into all this. And Lonzo is like the complete opposite of LaMelo. He is so like quiet and to himself and introspective, and but now you're seeing a much more gregarious part of him, and I wonder if it's because he went through so much in the NBA in his own career. So, I think all three of them together at least seem to be more comfortable with their paths and their roles. And the good news is like, hey, they're podcasting on their own. It's not like their dad is being like, do this, do that. Everything they're doing is of their own choice, which I really respect.
Lastly for you, Mirin, thanks for joining us. He's LaMelo is leaving Charlotte, where he was the A1 attraction, and coming to Minnesota, where this is Anthony Edwards' show. How do you see that dynamic and him adapting to this new environment where he isn't the be all and end all, and that, this is the world revolves around Ant?
I think he's going to love that. I think that's going to be the best thing for him. So I'm working on a Larry Bird book, and I'm doing all this Magic Johnson research, and all these old school quotes about Magic being like, man, I just love to set up Kareem. Man, I just love dishing and no. And I love to see the big fella's face when he does this. And I'm like, wow, like the passion he really had to pass the ball. I am absolutely not making a comparison between LaMelo Ball and Magic Johnson, to be clear. But I am saying he has that genuine excitement about passing the ball. And I think he's going to be so thrilled to set up somebody like Ant, and not being the guy will actually show people how selfless LaMelo is and how he's not this egotistical brat. So I think you will see that like he's actually pretty comfortable in that. I know it's not a fair comparison, high school hoops to NBA, but like LaMelo started his high school career out being the third dude. He had to pass to his brothers. He was not always the superstar on every team that he played at. Even overseas, there were guys that were ahead of him, and he had to set the table for them. And he was very much comfortable getting his within the team dynamic. So I actually think this will be better for him and maybe take the pressure off of him and certainly off of Ant. I keep seeing the funniest memes about them two, and that honestly, I feel people on the internet are gonna hand it to them. So good, so smart, and I think it will be so like everyone is predicting. I think they will both be so funny together, but also so serious. Okay, so serious, but also, yeah, we're just hooping. Like they remind again, like I feel like those two would be pickup basketball kings like forever. Like they are gonna play like that together.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Mirin, this is fantastic stuff. I hope to see you during the season, maybe come in training camp and not, in December or January when it is real cold up here. And
please,
and we'll break bread and look forward to even more conversation, more great writing from Mirin Fader at The Athletic. So thanks very much, Mirin.
Thank you so much.
We are going to take one more break, and I am going to, on the other side of the break, talk about all this LeBron James stuff that is swirling around the Minnesota Timberwolves right now. But we are brought to you by Lamb Chops and Chew Vision Institute. Chew Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to chewvision.com to set up your free consultation. Get in there, go through all of the steps that they take you through. It's an exhaustive but a very, very intelligent and educating process about all of the vision correction options that are available to you. I had LASIK surgery with Chew Vision about 2 years ago now. And it's been just an incredible thing for my life. I don't have to deal with the hassles of glasses and contacts anymore. I see clearly both up close and far away. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you can see that no glasses. And so I don't have to worry about constantly, are these glasses fashionable, or am I in the right style now? Is my prescription up to date? Do I have to go back and get another batch of daily contacts? Like, all of that hassle is gone, and my life is so much easier because I went to True Vision in Bloomington. So go to truevision.com, set up your consultation, tell them the John Krasinski Show sent you, and get on with living your best life after LASIK surgery at True Vision. That's right. If you go to sglambchops.com and use the promo code JONK20, you get 20% off anything that you get at Lamb Chops, and you can get a lot at Lamb Chops. They have hoodies, they have hats, they have pants, they have shorts, t-shirts, they have sweaters. There are all sorts of different things for you. It's all incredibly comfortable. It's all stylish, and it's all super high quality. You know, if you buy something from Lamb Chops, it is going to last you a very long time, and you're going to look good in it the whole time. I always like to say, you can go to Lamb Chops, buy whatever you want. You can wear that out on a Friday night in the North Loop and feel like you fit right in. You can wear it at a Timberwolves or Lynx game and fit right in, or you can wear it just lounging around the house, watching, on TV and being incredibly comfortable. So go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops. All right, we're back now on the John Krasinski Show. Mirin Fader has left, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to let us collectively wrap our minds around all of the chatter over the last 24 hours or so about the possibility of LeBron James coming to the Minnesota Timberwolves. As I've written at The Athletic, what I would caution everyone to just kind of take a deep breath and understand that it is unlikely that LeBron James would pick the Minnesota Timberwolves to come and play for a minimum salary and try and win a championship. I think Golden State is very high on the list. I do think Cleveland going back home is very interesting. Is Miami in it? I'm not sure, but certainly his history there, going to play with Giannis and Bam, is interesting. But I do think that the Timberwolves do not have a 0% chance at getting LeBron James. I don't know what the odds are. It's low, but it's not zero. And so if it isn't zero, the Wolves would be silly not to explore it, not to reach out and connect with LeBron James's people, with Rich Paul, with the whole group, and just say, hey, we are interested. We would love to have you. And I know they've done that. I've reported at The Athletic that they have reached out and connected with LeBron James camp and expressed an interest and a willingness in LeBron coming here. Now, why on earth would he pick the Minnesota Timberwolves over all the other options that he does have? Let's go down by them one by one. If you go to Golden State, it's a great opportunity to play with Steph Curry, play with his guy Draymond Green, and just kind of go out with people who are right around his age, obviously a little younger, but certainly of his same era, play really, really smart basketball, and probably compete for the playoffs, maybe even win a series. But I think if you look at that group, the ages of all of the main guys, Jimmy Butler coming off of an ACL, and you just wonder, do they have enough in the Western Conference to really challenge to go for a championship? Probably not. Then you look at Cleveland. Certainly would be really, really compelling to go back home, spend, if this is his last year in the NBA, some sort of retirement tour on the home front. Go back one more time to a team that is competitive in the Eastern Conference. But I mean, you have James Harden, who always fails in the playoffs. Donovan Mitchell has played very well in the playoffs, but that you'd have some questions around the fit with everyone there. And can they come out of the East against New York, against Boston, against Miami, against some of these other teams? I think that road is certainly not certain at all. If you were to go to San Antonio, that's just a bald-faced ring chase. And it would look, I think, a little less genuine for a player of his caliber, who, even though he is really, if he really wants to get that fifth championship and secure it, that would be a very good place to go. It just would feel like he was jumping on to the bandwagon of a team and not the one that elevates that team. And I think that you can make the argument that in Minnesota, coming to a team that has never won the title, playing with a bunch of players on the roster that have never won the title outside of Dante DiVincenzo, who's going to be injured for most of this year, that the opportunity is there for him to have a legendary impact if he could be the missing piece that gets this team over the hump in the Western Conference and to the finals, or certainly winning the championship. This is, Minnesota sports market that none of the men's teams have won since 1991, which I believe is the longest drought in America. And so you see, if he's won in Cleveland and then he also wins in Minnesota, like if you're looking at making a real kind of run at challenging Michael Jordan for the greatest of all time, man, that is a hell of a closing argument on your case. I came to Minnesota and I helped this team win the championship, and I ended this long, long drought of all the men's teams in the region. The other part about the Timberwolves is they just offer so much of what LeBron James needs as a player at this stage of his career. He's 41 years old right now. He will turn 42 next season. And he comes into this needing some help. He is not the LeBron James that can carry a team for 82 games plus the playoffs anymore. Who would be at 41 years old? But what he is an incredible connector, incredible performer who can pick his spots to where he is still one of the best players in the league. And so if you look at it and you come to a team that has Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels on either side of him, he would start at the 4. They can take care of a lot of the defensive pressure from LeBron James. So he does not have to work as hard on that end. Last year with the Lakers, he had to be a really good defensive player to give them a chance. And you come to this stage and you don't have to have that. You can be a good defensive player. You can read and react, but Rudy and Jaden have you. Ant has you on the perimeter as well. And so that has got to be really enticing. On the offensive end, he does not have to carry the load there either. He can, again, find the spots within games, within weeks of a season where he just has to take control and make things happen. But he would be playing on the floor with Anthony Edwards, one of the very best scorers in the league, young or old, LaMelo Ball, an incredible passer and facilitator, Jaden McDaniels, a rising offensive player in this league who had a great year last year offensively, and LeBron could just orchestrate, pick and choose, find people for easy shots, and then also when the defense is on its heels, he can go to the basket, he can hit those threes, he can do whatever he needs to do. So the Timberwolves could theoretically say to him, LeBron, just come in here. We have you covered on both ends, especially in the regular season. You can take it easy in the regular season. We don't need to push you incredibly hard. There's going to be, games that you can take off. We have a very, very good medical staff and training staff that can help kind of with your body. And put you in a position so that when the playoffs come, that is when we need you to turn it on full bore for 2 months. And that just seems to all shape up to give the Timberwolves an incredibly compelling argument for LeBron James. And we've heard Rich Paul on with Max Kellerman here recently, and Max was really pushing him on, hey, what about Minnesota? That's a good fit. And you would think like, well, LeBron James isn't coming to Minnesota where it's super cold in the wintertime and maybe, he has to deal with a younger team. And what Rich Paul said, and the direct quote was, as long as he has indoor or outdoor golf, he's fine. And so what that says is they are not closing the door on Minnesota right now. And so I just think that's very interesting. My antenna are up on this just because there have been several opportunities to completely rule out the Timberwolves in the LeBron James sweepstakes, and none of those have been taken by the LeBron James side. And so I think that my anticipation is like, we know that the Wolves need a power forward right now. And you're seeing kind of some of the contracts that are going out to John Collins, to some of the other kind of Sandro Mamakashvili. Like they're getting real money that the Wolves could not afford. And so I think it behooves the Wolves to sit back, hold off on signing any fours that are out there until you get a definitive no from LeBron James. And if you wait too long and if the market gets gobbled up of your guys, that's okay. Because what you can do is you can go into the regular season with Jaden McDaniels at the 4, or Terrence Shannon Jr. at the 4, toggle them between the 3 and the 4, and then you can let it play out a little bit and very much look at December, at January, at early February as opportunities to find trades that may not be there right now. It reminds me exactly of the D'Angelo Russell situation several years ago, where I think Tim Connolly came in, understood that maybe D'Angelo Russell wasn't the right fit for this team, but could not find a deal in the summertime. And he waited it out. He was patient with it. Started the season with D'Angelo Russell, then got a trade done where he went out to the Lakers. Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker came to the Wolves, and the whole thing just took off from there. And so just because a deal does not get done that is super compelling in this summertime does not mean that the roster construction of this team is dead and is done. They can continue to adapt, continue to look at it. There may be opportunities to get other power forwards in the middle of the season that are not there right now. I think their only main piece to really use in any kind of a trade is Josh Green and his $14.5 million salary. Right now, there aren't a lot of teams that are bending over backward to take that on. But it's possible that Josh Green plays well early on in the season, that other teams figure out exactly what they have and maybe start looking to the future come, middle of January, and maybe they are willing to part with a power forward who they like but don't love for Josh Green's expiring salary, and you just move forward from there. And so I just don't think that there's any need to hyperventilate that the Wolves do not immediately have a traditional, prototypical starting power forward on the roster. Maybe as soon as we hang up and hear they'll sign someone and like all of that will be null and void. But I just look at where they are at right now. And even if LeBron James is just a tiny, tiny possibility, you have to just wait that out. You cannot afford to lose out if he just says, you know what, I really like Anthony Edwards. I really think that this team has a chance to win and win big. And I know that if they do, my legacy is even further stamped than it already is. I'm going to come to Minnesota and play. You just have to go until he tells you no. The biggest picture part of this is, man, can you Wolves fans ever imagine 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years ago, that we would be talking about the possibility of LeBron James coming to Minnesota to play for the minimum contract because he thinks this is the best chance to win? Like, that is unfathomable to me, who as a writer who has documented this team for 23 years now. It's got to be crazy to a lot of you Wolves fans who have been at the depths of the NBA, who know what it's like to hurt and to suffer and to feel hopeless. And now there is at least a chance that LeBron James could come to Minnesota. That is just mind-blowing to me. I am having to pinch myself and say, this is crazy. I can't believe that it's actually a real argument that can be made. And that just shows how far this team has come. That shows what an absolute magnet that Anthony Edwards is. That shows the job that Tim Connolly and Chris Finch have done in leading this franchise. And the Wolves are actually in a position to make a good argument for LeBron James at this stage of his career, and that is bananas. So maybe those good tides will take you into the 4th of July weekend. You can celebrate with your families. I don't know when a LeBron James decision will come. We'll all be watching, and until he absolutely picks some other team, I'm just going to sit back and say, you can't say never until he goes somewhere else. So thanks for sticking with me. Thanks to Davide Rosso for staying up late and producing. We are coming to you again from the Aquarius Home Services Studios, presented by Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Also brought to you by TSR Injury Law, Lamb Chops, True Vision Institute. Thanks again to Mirin Fader for joining. Thanks to you all for listening, and we will talk to you next week.